Today I'm going to be reviewing Intimidator at Carowinds. This is the B&M Hyper down on the border of North and South Carolina in Charlotte. And let me just tell you guys real quick, the first time I rode Intimidator, I rode it 5 times back in June of 2017. So about 2 years ago, I rode this coaster for the first time, okay? I went back about a month ago to ride it. And before I went in, I remembered really loving this coaster. And you guys knew that I loved this more than most people. But I went back and rode this thing, and let me just say, I have never been more disappointed with going back and riding a coaster than this. I had remembered loving this ride so much. I remembered crazy airtime. And I kind of had a feeling that I was going to come in and this was going to happen because I remember back in early June of 2017 that what happened was, I believe that day it was actually running trimless. And I remembered getting crazy airtime. Like, it was borderline flowjector. It was hauling. But you know, I did ride it on opening day this year, so of course it was going to be running a little slower. And did it move down that much in my rankings? Actually, not a lot, maybe like 4 or 5 spots, but still, it was just not as good as I remembered. I don't know what happened, but I did figure out one trick that helped out in keeping this coaster very high in my rankings, at least where I wanted it to be, and I'll talk to you guys about that here in a little bit. But for now, we're going to get into the general review. So when you go up to Intimidator, of course, the plaza is great. It is similar to i305's plaza. You know, you've got the checkered flaming on the ground, and there's flags everywhere, you know, Dale Earnhardt stuff. So anyway, when you walk into this queue line, there is literally nothing. I mean, it's nice, it looks cool, I guess. You kind of walk under the coaster's brake run, but overall, of course, this coaster's not going to have insane theming. It is just Carowinds, it's a Cedar Fair park, blah, blah, blah. Get into the station, pull down your B&M clamshells, and oh my gosh, it felt so good to get back in another pair of these. I don't really like the staggered B&M Hyper trains. I prefer the 4x8s, you know, like on Apollo's Chariot, although that is a 4x9. Or just in general, something like Mako or Raging Bull, you know, that kind of train. But these are still okay. Staggered trains are definitely not as good as the 4x8s, but it was totally fine. Anyway, just pull down your B&M clamshells, and they are awesome as always, of course. And you start going up that lift hill, and I was like, holy crap, here we go. And the first time I rode this, about a month ago, I believe it was like third to back row or something. And we went down that drop, and I was like, whoa, that was really good. That drop is so much fun. But it's just not as good as in the front row, and I found that something really odd. You definitely didn't even feel like you got whipped over that much harder. I mean, you definitely get whipped over harder than you would in the front, but it was just so weird. It didn't feel as good as it would have in the front row, so I found that kind of odd. I mean, overall, the drop is just okay. It is really fun, I will admit that. If you're in the front row, you get a really good time out of that thing, but I don't know, it just was not as good as I remember. Then you go up straight into what I consider, if not the best, one of the best airtime moments of the ride. It is that massive turnaround point where you just go to the right, and it is so cool. You just start sidewinding down the side of that thing, and it's just so much fun. If you're in the back row, you get whipped straight over it. Some great borderline flowjector. It's really cool. It definitely wasn't as good as I remembered. Like, again, this whole ride wasn't as good as I remembered, but it was still pretty cool. One of my favorite parts of the ride for sure. After this, you're going to go up into the first major airtime hill, and you know, it was trimmed, so in any other row than the front, this hill sucked. I didn't come out of my seat at all, which was just so stupid. I kind of laughed out loud. It was so weird that I didn't come out of my seat. Now, if you're in the front, you're going to get flowjected out of your seat. It was really, really good. I just really can't emphasize this enough. If you want to get a great experience out of this ride, please ride in the front. That is what keeps it so high in my rankings. It is just that front row. I don't know what it is. It's because you hit that trim with full force, so you're still going to come out of your seat, but it's definitely better than anything in the back. After this, you go up into that iconic turnaround, and it is very, very good. I like the forces it gives. It is really cool. I mean, it's nothing insane, but it's one of the better turnarounds on Hypers out there, I'd say. It was pretty fun overall, so nothing too insane. But after this, you go into the next airtime hill, and now this was actually really good. Only in the front row again. But this was a really good airtime moment. Not as good as the first one, but I actually was not expecting that much out of it. After this, you go into the third airtime hill, and I don't think there was a trim on this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was. Yeah, there was no trim on there. So you definitely get some decent air. It's nothing insane, just your classic floater. And after this, you go up into the mid-course, and this is where the ride completely dies. This is where it is just over. Like, don't expect anything after this. Even if you are in the back row, when you go off that mid-course, nothing. You get no air. I was so freaking disappointed with it. I did not expect that at all. I don't think it's that big of a deal because this is a staggered hyper, so it's not going to be as insane as you'd want it to be. However, it just still was kind of odd that I didn't really come out of my seat that much at all. I mean, this is why the coaster got the nickname Intimidator, so I don't hate this coaster as much as most people do, but I definitely didn't think it was anything outstanding. It's really fun. This coaster is awesome, especially in the front row, but anyway, I'm getting off track. After this mid-course, you're going to go into a little helix, which of course doesn't really do anything. If you can see in this clip right here, it was literally slugging. This was like the third test of the morning, and this was on opening day, so it was completely slugging through that. I was laughing so hard. But anyway, you're going to go up into a little airtime pop, only if you're in the front, remember, and then you kind of just slide into the brakes like a freaking slug. So that is Intimidator. It was not quite as good as I remembered, however, I still had a great time on it. It is so much fun. If you get a front row ride, this coaster is awesome. I'd say this, in the front row, Intimidator is better than Afterburn, but if it's in any other row, or at least any of the back rows, Afterburn is better. And this is something that's kind of uncommon on most B&M hypers, is that you normally would want to go in the back row because that's where the airtime is most strong. But with this one, that is not exactly the case, and it's kind of odd, but it's kind of cool at the same time. I think disregarding the row stuff, this coaster overall, when you look at it from an overall standpoint, it is so cool. It is such a fun B&M hyper. Definitely gets too much hate. I think in the front row, this could be one of the best B&M hypers out there, just period. Any other, it's kind of I'm not going to lie, but overall, the coaster's pretty fun. Definitely not too intense at all. I mean, it's a B&M hyper. What do you expect? The airtime is decent. It could have been better, but it's fine for what it is. Do not expect any airtime from any of the back rows. It is completely non-existent. You don't even come out of your seat a little bit. It's so weird. But yeah, this has been my Intimidator review. So for Intimidator's final score, I'm going to be giving it a 7 out of 10. This coaster is not bad. It is really fun. In fact, if we were just talking about in the front row, I'd say I'd give it a solid 8 or 8.5 out of 10. But just looking at it overall, it's just a 7 out of 10 for me. That doesn't mean it's bad. Even if it's not in the front row, it's still really fun because you're just going so fast. I did notice this thing had a strange vibration throughout some parts of the ride, so definitely gained a slight rattle, but I really didn't care at all. You guys know I don't care about rattles, and you know I don't believe in roughness, so overall, this coaster is a lot of fun. It's nothing insane, but it is still such a great time. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Post your comments down in the section below. If you've read an Intimidator, what do you think of it? Do you have the same thoughts as me? If not, go ahead and talk about it. I really don't care because I'd love to hear if you guys agree with me or not. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, coaster fans, I will see you later.